How every greatest king died. Number 8. Qin Shi Huang. Qin Shi Huang, the man who ruled all under heaven, died chasing a fantasy he couldn't control. He was China's first emperor, ruthless, brilliant, and obsessed with control. He crushed rival kingdoms, standardized writing, laws, and currency, and built the first version of the Great Wall. But what he feared most wasn't rebellion or invasion, it was death. To escape it, he ordered the construction of a massive underground mausoleum near modern-day Shan, complete with palaces, traps, rivers of mercury, and over 8,000 terracotta soldiers to guard him, each with unique faces, armors, and weapons. Qin didn't just want to be remembered, he wanted to rule forever, even in death. But obsession turned to delusion. He began drinking immortality elixirs prepared by court alchemists, filled with mercury. His symptoms worsened, shaking hands, sleepless nights, paranoia. Yet, Qin's obsession only deepened. He dispatched Xu Fu twice, sending 3,000 boys, girls, and craftsmen to the eastern seas to find the legendary Isles of the Immortals. In 210 BCE, while touring the east, he collapsed near Langya after angrily ordering the execution of the sea monster that he believed had blocked his envoy Xu Fu from reaching the mystical Isles of the Immortals. He died days later. To this day, Qin Shi Huang's tomb remains sealed, guarded by mercury, mystery, and fear. Number 7. Bayezid I, the Thunderbolt. Bayezid I, who once struck fear into the heart of Europe, died like an animal. At the height of his reign, Bayezid I, known as the Thunderbolt, ruled the Ottoman Empire with unmatched speed and aggression. Between 1389 and 1402, he expanded his territory at lightning speed, crushed crusader armies at Nicopolis, and laid siege to Constantinople itself. European kings feared him. Even his name sounded like war. But in 1402, Bayezid faced a storm greater than his own. Tamerlane, the ruthless conqueror of the East. As the two empires clashed at the Battle of Ankara, Bayezid's army crumbled under Timur's cunning tactics and his own allies' betrayal, including many Anatolian beyliks who defected mid-battle. The Thunderbolt was captured, not killed, and then made it worse. Timur had him locked in an iron cage, paraded like a trophy across Asia. Some say Bayezid's humiliation drove him mad. In March 1403, weakened by wounds, poor treatment, or perhaps despair, he died in that cage. Number 6. Richard the Lionheart. Richard the Lionheart, who once led crusade across continents, met a sudden and almost absurd end. Crowned in 1189, Richard I spent barely 6 months in England. He preferred war to ruling. He faced off against Saladin, survived captivity in Austria, and returned home a living legend. On March 25, as he inspected the wall of the castle, a young crossbowman named Pierre Basal from the tower took aim. His bolt struck Richard on the left shoulder, near the base of his neck. The wound, at first minor, quickly turned deadly. Richard refused proper treatment and even laughed off the injury, but gangrene set in. 11 days later, on April 6, 1199, the Lionheart died in his mother's arm. He was 41. In a final act of chivalry, Richard forgave the boy who shot him, but his officers did not. Number 5. Attila the Hun. Attila the Hun, who once ruled the vast empire from the Danube to the steppes of Central Asia, had one of the strangest royal deaths in history. Attila, known as the Scourge of God, was a key force behind the gradual fall of the Western world in the Middle Ages. He struck such fear that Constantinople, the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, was forced to pay him gold to maintain peace. But in 453 CE, Attila's story ended in a way no one expected. That night, Attila celebrated his wedding with Ildiko, the young Gothic bride. In a moment of relaxation on the banks of the Tisza River, he was surrounded by loyal warriors and close courtiers, and laughter, wine rang and echoes throughout the space. The wine flowed, the fire increased, everyone ate and drank merrily, and the king's health was strengthened. The wedding feast had ended, and Attila and Hun retired to his tent, happy with his new bride. No one knew what had happened before the tent's closed flaps. But when dawn broke, the silence was shattered. Attendants found Attila lying lifeless in his bed, his face pale and stained with blood. Some say Attila died from a sudden severe nosebleed, brought on by years of hard living and heavy drinking. The bleeding may have overwhelmed him in his sleep, leaving no chance for aid. Others whisper a dark tale, that Ildiko, the young bride, poisoned the great king, and his reign with a silent betrayal. Number 4. Mehmed the Conqueror. Mehmed II, known as the Conqueror, met a mysterious and sudden end. In 1453, at just 21, he conquered Constantinople after a 53-day siege, ending 1,000 years of Byzantine rule. That single victory transformed the Ottomans into a world empire, and Mehmed into legend. He ruled over 30 years. However, in 1481, his ambitious plan began to unravel. While preparing for a secret military campaign, rumored targets including Venice or Egypt, Mehmed grew increasingly paranoid and isolated. On April 25th, he left Constantinople and set up camp near Maltabt. A week later, he fell suddenly ill. His legs swelled, he vomited, he couldn't stand. His personal physician, Yaqub Pasha, administered daily treatments, but his condition only worsened. Whispers of poison spread quickly. Rumors spread that he was poisoned, possibly by his son Bayezid, eager to seize the throne. Even the Vatican was rumored to be involved. On May 3rd, 1481, Mehmed died in his tent. Aged about 49, his death was kept secret for days to prevent civil war. Number 3. Xerxes I. Xerxes I, the king who ruled from India to the Aegean, was betrayed not by his enemies but by the man who guarded his throne. At the height of his reign, Xerxes I commanded the vast Persian Achaemenid Empire, stretching from India to Greece. He is most famously known for launching the massive invasion to Greece in 480 BCE, defeating the Spartans and Thermopylae. But later, he suffered major losses at Salamis and Plataea. Humiliated and disillusioned, Xerxes withdrew from military affairs and buried himself in palace life, building, drinking, and thrusting the wrong man. One of those men was Artabanus, commander of the royal bodyguard and one of the most powerful figures at court. In August 465 BCE, while the king slept in his chambers at Persepolis, Artabanus and his accomplices entered quietly. According to later sources, Xerxes was stabbed to death in his bed, and his death was hidden briefly while Artabanus tried to manipulate the line of succession. But the plan failed. Number 2. Augustus. Augustus, who once ruled the entire Roman world and founded the Roman Empire itself, died in a way that invited whispers for centuries. By 14 CE, he was in the mid-70s, frail but still in control. He had reshaped Rome from a crumbling republic into a stable empire and prepared his stepson Tiberius as successor reluctantly, after the death of all his preferred heirs. With power now poised to pass into Livia's bloodline, one hypothesis gained traction, that the empress ensured the handover happened exactly when she wanted. In his final days, Augustus withdrew to Nola, the same town where his father had died. The story passed down through Roman gossip circles and later historians like Tacitus and Suetonius was this: Augustus, too ill to eat much. Livia brought him figs from the garden, fresh, sweet, and plucked with her own hand. Figs that, some claim, she had lightly smeared with poison, just enough to mimic natural decline. When Augustus finally died on August 9, 14 CE, it was Livia who stayed composed, who arranged the transition, who saw to it that Tiberius, her son by another man, inherited the empire without a single drop of resistance. Number 1. Henry V. Henry V, who once shattered armies and claimed the crown in France, met an end more silent and surprising than any sword could deliver. Crowned in 1413, he reigned only 9 years but earned eternal fame. By 1422, he ruled half of France and all of England. But fate struck not with arrows, but fever. But in 1422, the warrior king launched his final campaign, laying siege to Mayotte, a rebellious town east of Paris. The summer was brutal, hot, wet, disease-ridden. Henry, exposed daily to the swamp and filth of the siege camp, refused to rest. He led assault personally, dug trenches, and waded through knee-deep mud with his men. But his body began to falter. He developed severe abdominal pain, fever, and dehydration. Most historians agree it was dysentery, the soldier's plague, common in medieval sieges. As his condition worsened, he was moved to the Chateau de Vincennes, just outside of Paris. His strength faded by the day. On August 31, 1422, he died at just 35 years old. His last words were said to be prayers for his infant son, Henry VI. Subscribe for more stories of power, glory, and the king who met unforgettable ends.